Before, I was reading a book about Rudolf Laban, and I talked about a process of how to turn inspiration into concrete techniques that I can practice and have some sort of process about how to make new things and follow the information that I'm finding and how to process it and investigate it and research in that way. And to pay attention to what I'm discovering along the way, to know where I'm going so I'm not lost, and also to collect the results and figure out how to work with them. I'd like to do something related to that, but in a little bit of a different way. So this will also be about an artistic process, or at least a way to create technique. Because again, I think a lot of jugglers are really interested, and they always say, how can I make a new trick? How can I make a creative trick? I want a trick that's technical, but still nobody's done before. And there has to be some sort of skill involved, but it's a new skill nobody's seen before, etc. So I really wanted to start with nothing and create something from there and see how does that process work. So again, this is a really true story. This is exactly what I did when I was working on this, and this is the entire process. So nothing's hidden and nothing was figured out looking back upon it afterwards. This was really in the moment exactly how things progressed from the beginning to the end. And so I wanted to see how my process would work if I started to make a trick out of nothing. So I started with nothing, and then I thought, well, what do I do now? And this is what happened. So I call this 5-ball lines, and before I had that name, I didn't have 5 of anything, and I didn't have any sort of line. It was just, I had nothing. So I started, and I had to make a choice, and I said, well, I want to make a trick. So how do I have a trick? And I said, well, I need something to do the trick with. And again, because in my process I say, well, might as well start simple. Start with the most simple thing you can. Why make it complicated? So I just started with a ball, kind of like we've been doing already a lot. So I started with a ball, and I said, okay, I'm going to do a trick with a ball. And then I had to start to make a lot more decisions, of course. And part of that was, well, one of the decisions was, how many balls do I need to have? I thought, do I want to do a trick with 1 ball? Because I could do a trick with 1 ball. I said, no, just for no other reason than I don't want to do a trick with 1 ball. Let's just say for fun, for this process, I'm going to use 5 balls. So there was no more reason than that, but I said, okay, I'm going to make a trick with 5 balls. Anyway, that sounds fun to me. I'd like to have a 5-ball trick, a new 5-ball trick, that'd be great. So I started to have something with 5 balls. And in that way, I start to build up my trick from the bottom. And I think about this like a building, like you're constructing a house or something. And you start with the foundation and you start adding layers, bricks or something, some sort of metaphor like this, bricks, to construct your house. So again, at the very bottom of the foundation, I have this idea of a ball. And then after that, on top of that, I have the number 5. And the reason this is important is because, of course, at any step of the way, I can just change those words to different things. And the process is the same. I could have started with a club or a ring or Diablo, whatever. I could have chose 2 or 7.5 or whatever, right? But for now, we have 5 balls. Simple enough. So I had 5 balls, and I thought, okay, so what am I going to do with these 5 balls? I can do anything I want. And that's also a problem we have a lot when we're creating something new. We can always think to ourselves, well, I can do anything I want, and then you end up doing nothing, right? There's too many choices. So I have to start to narrow it down. And again, like when I was reading the book about Rudolf Laban, using this cube from Plato, we had a pretty defined concept, and inside of that concept, we didn't know how the work would evolve, but we had a really clear picture of where we were going. And so one of the ideas I like to work with a lot in my juggling is this idea of shape. And I don't mean shape in the way of pattern, in the way that we have a shower, it's a circle, or we have Mills mess, it's a different sort of pattern or shape or figure or form. But I just mean literally shapes. I really like shapes. We have lines, circles, triangles, squares, rectangles, whatever, right? And again, so I really like shapes, and I thought, well, let's start with the most simple shape I could think of in one way. And so instead of a point, which might be the most simple shape, I don't know, I'm going to give it 2 dimensions and say it's a line. I'm just going to say for now, again, it's a pretty random choice, but I want to start with some sort of concept that I can't do anything in the world. I want to start to narrow down my focus and figure out what am I going to do. So I start with this idea of a shape, and then I try to pick a simple one and for now I'm going to pick a line. So again, I'm building my house here. If you want, you can say shape is the concept. And on top of that, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to choose a line. And now again, I'm building up. And when I start to build these layers, I don't go back and change what I've already done. That makes sense, yeah? I make a choice and I stick with it, at least for now. There's no reason for me to change anything. Just because I picked this idea of a line, it doesn't mean I have to change the shape, or excuse me, the prop of a ball. I can still use a ball and try to do something with the concept of a line. For now, right? There's no reason for me to not try that. So, I have this idea of a line, and I have 5 balls. What am I going to do? And I thought, well, for now, for no other reason than just to be simple, I can put them in a line. So I put the 5 balls in a line. And again, you can start to be as accurate with this concept as you want. You can start to say, oh, well, maybe my line is not so straight. Maybe the line is not evenly spaced, or whatever. However you want to put the balls randomly in a line. For me personally, again, to keep things simple, there's no reason for me not to do something simple. There's no reason to be complicated. So for now, I just put them in a line, you know, a normal line right next to each other. And that also helps me define what is a line, especially if I get lost later on. Because if I'm creating something and later on I have some questions about what am I doing, I can just go back to what I did before and say, oh, I'm working with a line. And it's pretty clear for me to define this as a line. You know? I don't have a lot of questions about how this is a line. Whereas again, if they were maybe randomly ordered or spaced out like this, I can say, yeah, it's a line and the line curves, and it's maybe harder for me to define later on. I'm keeping it simple for now, so I put them in a line. And at every single step of this process, I can stop and say to myself, do I like my trick? So I'm making a trick from nothing, and now I have this, and I can say, this is my trick. Am I happy? And personally, I wasn't happy with this. I didn't want to stop here, but this is where I'm at right now. So I decided that, okay, I have 5 balls, they're in a line, and I wasn't happy. I said, really, do I like this? And I said, well, no, I don't like this. And I thought, why don't I like this? I said, well, nothing is happening. They're just sitting there, and I like juggling partly because it's moving. There's some sort of movement. So I said, okay, great. Then I should move the balls. Right? So then I'm making another choice. I say, okay, they're in the line, and now they're going to move. And then I have to start to define and say, how are the balls going to move? And again, keeping the most simple choice I can think of for now, one of the most simple choices, right? It's just to say that the ball is just going to go up and down. Again, it's really easy for me to define, and it's also easy for me later on to understand that the ball's going up and down in a straight line or not. Yeah, it's pretty easy for me to detect that and see that if it's following my rule. So I'm going to say that the balls go up and down, and then, so they move, they're going to go up and down, like this. And after that, I have to start to decide how that happens. Because once I realize that the ball is going to go up and down, then I start to understand, oh, wait a second. Well, I have a lot of options now. It might seem like a pretty simple structure I have, right? It's not very many layers. But already with this right here, I still don't know what I'm doing, right? Because the ball can go up and down, well, that one can go up and down, and then what? These 3 go up and down, and then these 2, or this one again, and this one, maybe just only this one goes up and down all the time. I have to start to decide how I'm going to apply this concept a little bit further, because it's still not clear what I'm going to do. So again, I say, okay, what's the most simple choice I could make in one way? So the first thing I said was, well, a ball is going to go up and down, but only one ball at a time. And then that erases all these questions about, is it going to be these 3, or is it going to be these 4, etc., right? So I just think like, okay, the ball's going to go up and down. They're only going to go up and down one at a time. Cool. But then again, this one could still just go up and down, and the other ones don't go up and down. And I say, this is my trick. Do I like this trick? Is it not really? So then, if it's one at a time, then I have to establish an order. And once I have all that information, it's a little bit more clear, and then I can say, do I like the trick? So, again, trying to think what's the easiest way to organize this movement of up and down. Well, since I have a line, I can go back and look at my plan and say, okay, I already have a concept there against which I can organize the later concepts. if that makes sense. All right, so I'm choosing ideas here, up and down. Well, how should I organize that? Well, I already have a lot of concepts here to work with, so I can go backwards and say, oh, it's a line. And so again, keeping as simple as I think I can, I say, well, they're going to move up and down, and they're going to move up and down in the order of the line. That's pretty easy, right? That makes sense. So that one's going to move up and down, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one, and then the next one. Then I have a pattern, I have an action, I have an order, I have a lot of information now. So I can say, and again, we already know that there's not going to be two at a time, so it just has to be this one. And because I'm using this idea of a line, it's not going to be this one and then this one, because I skipped one. So I know it has to be first this ball and then just down the line. I go down the line and I move the balls up and down. I say, okay, that's a great plan. So now I want to make that happen in real life. I want to make those actions real and concrete, because I have a conceptual idea, and now I want to actually move the balls. Then I have to decide, how am I going to do that? So how am I going to make that action possible? And there's a lot of different choices. Again, in every step of the way, I could have made totally different choices. And so for now, again, keeping with this theme of trying to be as simple as possible, as simple as I can, I thought I would do that job, that task I've set out for myself so far, I would do it using two hands. Because of course I could have said, well, I'll use two hands in my head, or I'll use maybe my elbow and my foot, or I'll use my mouth. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'll use a friend. I'll get more people to come help me do this movement. Maybe I get 5 people total and they each have one ball. I don't know. But again, to keep it as simple as I can, I said, great, I have this plan now of a line and this movement, and I'm going to try to do this using my two hands. It's the first thing I started off with juggling. So I have this idea of two hands. And then it means that because I want to use two hands, I want to use them equally. Again, to keep it simple. That way I don't have to think about it and go, okay, I'm going to use two hands, it goes down the line, so I'll do the first 4 with the left hand, and the last one I'll do with the right hand. Seems a little bit tricky to understand this pattern all of a sudden. But if I say I'm going to use two hands and divide the work equally, then that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to take this task, I'm going to divide the work equally between the two hands. And because we have 5 objects, right, because that was an earlier decision to have 5 balls down here on the base layer, it means that if I divide this work equally now between two hands, this is pretty clear, right? I have 2 balls here and 2 balls here in terms of the work of each hand. And then it means one time this ball will be moved by this hand, and the next time the ball will be moved by this hand, right? Then it's dividing the work equally. So in this way, now we have a lot of information. It means that, again, the balls are going to be moved up and down the line in this order, from one side to the other. They go up and down, here, 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 here. And I want to divide the work equally between two hands, so I go like this. And it means that one time the ball will be moved here, and the next time the ball is moved over here. So if we look at what that means in practical reality, in terms of actually juggling it and moving the balls physically, instead of conceptually here on the table, it means that if these 2 balls are always going to be used or moved by this hand, then they're going to stay there, right? Because this hand can just deal with those 2 balls. Same thing on this side. And this ball has to change sides. So now we know we have a pattern. It looks like this. This ball goes straight up and down. It's always thrown and caught by this left hand. Same thing for this ball. This ball sometimes is thrown by this hand and sometimes by the other hand, so it crosses. And then these 2 balls just go straight up and down to the same hand. And again, the way I could define what is a line this way, but also this idea of up and down, for now I'm going to say it's a throw, right? Keeping simple, just to redefine that a little bit more clearly. And say when I say the ball goes up and down, for now I'm saying it's going to be a little throw. Because it could be a bounce, or it could be some other sort of manipulation idea. But for now it's going to be a little throw. So now I have all these ideas, and I can actually juggle this pattern, right? I have a pattern, I know what's happening for each ball, and each moment, and I can actually physically do it. So then I'm going to try to do it. It means that I'm going to try to have the balls in the hands and do my plan. So the first thing I do is I pick up the balls and I try to keep them in a line, like this, and now I'm going to start to try to throw them. And the first thing I realize is, well, I have a conceptual plan, right, on paper or in my mind, but in reality, when I go to deal with the objects, this isn't my normal technique. This isn't how I normally interact with balls using my hands. I don't usually have a grip like this. Particularly, I certainly don't have a grip like this, especially when I should throw balls one at a time. Then I can say to myself, that's okay. I don't need to go backwards and change what I did before. I need to understand what I did before, but now I can say I keep my entire concept that I built, and here I just put a grip on it, and I don't change anything else, but I just add a grip. It means that instead of trying to have this literal image of a line in my hands physically, it's okay for me to do my normal grip. I just have to keep track of the balls, yeah? Because again, I have this visual plan in my mind that's like this, but there's a physical reality that comes to having two hands. So I'm already doing this, and I'm already moving this ball here and here, right? And so if you remember backwards from the beginning, when I talked about this idea of a line, I already talked about how should the line be, and I had thought, well, the line should be evenly spaced and etc., right? Because that's the easiest way to remember what's a line. But then physically, when I go to try to do this, maybe that has to start to change a little bit. It doesn't change what I did before, but I understand it in a new way with a new set of details. So again, it goes the same for my grip. So I have my grip, and then here I go. And then I can start to try to do what I wanted to do. And that was, again, let's see. So these two balls are going to go straight up and down. This one ball here that was in the middle is going to cross, and then these two balls go straight up and down. And they have to go up and down one at a time. So, let's see. I can do this ball up one at a time, the next ball one at a time, crossing ball, their ball, that ball. Then I start to realize, okay, that's where I am with my trick. Am I happy? I said, no, I'm not so happy yet, but maybe it starts to be something pretty soon. I start to feel that there might be a pattern there. And then I realize as soon as I've done this trick once, or this pattern once, that I don't actually know where to start again. Because remember, conceptually, I was just saying I start at one end, and I go down the line one at a time. But I never actually said which end. And then I start to notice that when I divide the work between two hands, it is asymmetrical. One side has 3 balls, one side has 2 balls. So which side to start on? Do I start on this side, or do I start on this side? And I have to start to understand this, and if there could be a reason to know. Because when I try to do it again, I can go here, and then I can go here, crossing here and here, or do I start again on this side, even though it has 3 balls, instead of starting on this side with 2 balls, and I have that, and I try to keep track of the balls, something like that, I don't know. And then I start to understand more about the pattern, and I go, okay, I kind of like this concept where I'm at right now, but what I don't like is the rhythm of it, because it starts and stops. So for example, this ball goes up and then it stops, and I can just wait here until I'm bored enough. Oh, and then I can do the next ball. Right? There's no reason for me to throw those balls other than my own choice. So then I start to look for a reason, because I want to fix the rhythm. Right? And this is pretty obvious by now, but just to say, we have this idea of rhythm, and I want to start to think like, what about rhythm? Do I have some sort of idea about rhythm besides my own random timing that makes me want to throw? And then I say, yeah, well actually I realize that if I throw this first ball, I can throw the next ball using just a normal juggling exchange, right? The first thing I ever learned in my life. So I can say, okay, so then the rhythm should kind of be some sort of metronome or some sort of beat, and that beat or metronome is against this idea of a juggling exchange, the 2-ball exchange. This is the first thing I ever learned with juggling. So I have this rhythm now of this timing, where when the first ball starts to fall, the next ball goes then, right? And we can start to define this timing as accurately as we want to. But for now, we can say that after the first ball reaches its peak, that's when the next ball is going to move. right? And I put that on top of my entire concept. My 5 balls, my line, my moving down the line, etc. Then I start to say, okay, that's cool. Now I have a rhythm, I understand that, but I'm still stuck with this question of which side to start on. But using this idea of rhythm, of the exchange, then I can start to see if there is some more information that tells me which side I'm going to start on. So again, I can pick up the balls in my grip, and I just understand they're going to be in a line spatially. And I can do the first two, or the first throw, I can throw the next throw, and then when it starts to fall, I realize, oh, I can throw the next throw, it's crossing, yeah, so I can go 1, 2, 3. And as that one starts to fall, I realize, oh, I can throw the next one, and then the last one. So already there, if I start on the side with 2, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that worked pretty good. Now I have actually a juggling pattern. Again, am I happy? It's a different question, but just to say I have a pattern that works. Especially I have a pattern that works with my grip and my normal technique. I think everything I've done so far, it's really simple, right? It's really easy to understand. I'm not doing anything differently so far than my normal juggling. It's ridiculously simple. The only thing I'm doing at this point is juggling 2 in one hand for 1 beat, right? Because also we can understand that the rhythm I've established, again, if I go back and start at my starting point here, where I had 2 in my left and 3 in my right, I just do that five throws again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just to understand and be really clear that when I do 1, 2, that rhythm that I've established of the exchange, it's a natural rhythm in the way that this first ball is really clearly marking the rhythm for the next ball. But just to understand that the crossing ball really has no physical relationship to that, because I'm using the other hand. And that way I could go just to pay attention, and I could say 1, 2, I could wait, oh, 3, and then I could wait again, oh, 4, 5. So it's really only the 1, 2, and the 4, 5 that have a natural rhythm in terms of our exchange. It means that the third ball is going to be forced into that rhythm. We just have to pay attention and say, okay, I don't want to be late with that ball, and I don't want to be late with the other 2 after it. So I have to keep it in time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it keeps it on that steady tempo. Great. But then we have to say, okay, I was starting all the time now with the side that has 2 balls. What if I start with the side that has 3 balls? Can I do the same thing? Then I can say it like this. So let's try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually then it doesn't really work so well. Because of course I could force it into that and start to make a whole new technique, a whole new grip. Especially then when I get this third ball crossing, then I have to throw this ball, and then already having this grip here, I throw the next ball in time. And it's not such a big deal, but it's complicated enough that I can say for now, at least at this point in my process, why bother? If I start with the hand that has 2 balls, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it totally works. It's super easy, right? But if I start with the hand with 3 balls, I say, I have a little bit of grip problems, at least with the technique I have now. And it's a silly problem, right? It's something I can easily overcome. But it's not so nice, it's not so elegant, it's not so immediate, it's not so simple. And so of course, that could be, again, like when we were reading the book about Laban, that could be a point where later on I go back. But now my road is splitting. And I say, there's the side that starts with 3, there's the side that starts with 2. And so for now, let's just keep going with the side that starts with 2. It's more simple. It's going to move us forward faster. And again, I have no reason to complicate my life so much right now to start with the side that has 3. And anyway, it's good to make choices. It's good to build your building with all these choices. It's just going to get more and more layers, more solid and more concrete. So for now, I'm going to say, we're not going to start with the side that has 3 balls. We're only going to start with the side that has 2 balls. And now we have a ton of information about this pattern. Right? 5, it's a ball, there's 5 of them, it's in a line, divide the work equally, this ball goes here half the time, over here half the time. I'm going to go down the line in order, the balls move 1 at a time up and down, in a rhythm that's based on an exchange. Which side do I start on? I start on the side with 2 balls. Cool, right? Now I know a lot of things that are happening. So then again, finally, I say to myself, here's what I have so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I happy? And I can say, yeah, I'm a little bit happy. I kind of like it. It's maybe something. And then I say, but what could be better? What might I change about it, right? So I try again. Okay, the side that has 2 balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I say, yeah, I like it, but it just doesn't keep going. It stops. I do 5 throws and it stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I kind of am left wanting more. So yeah, I kind of like the rhythm. I kind of like the shape. I like the objects, but then it's very short. So how can I make it go longer? And this comes back to an idea that we talked about before, where if you have a rhythmic pattern, and so for now we have a rhythmic pattern that's 5 beats long, right? So let's say here we have the 5 throws. And you remember that the throw in the middle is crossing, and the other throws are just straight up and down to the same hands. If I take a 5-beat pattern and I want to loop it, a really easy way to loop something is to cut one of the beats, and it will layer over itself again. We've seen this a couple different times with some other exercises we did. It means that if I cut away one of the beats and I make it into a 4-beat pattern, then, okay, here's going to be that 5, that 5th beat. If we start again on the 5th beat, it's going to loop. And again, here's that 5th beat. But that 5th beat turns into the 1st beat, etc., all the time. And that way it means in practical reality, the 5th beat and the 1st beat overlap, and then that's why it's going to keep going and going and going. It means if I cut that 5th beat and I turn this 5-beat pattern into a 4-beat pattern, then it will loop. So let's see what that means. Here's my concept, my starting point. And again, we have 5 beats starting from the side that has 2 balls. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah? Let's turn that 5 beats into 4 beats. So I start from the side that has 2, but I'm going to skip the first ball. Right? The first ball doesn't go anywhere. And I'm going to start here. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to come back, but I don't do this ball. I do the next ball. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's see if I can juggle that. Here we go. Let's do, so I'm going to skip the first ball and only throw the second ball. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now it loops. Yeah? So why don't we try that together? Get your 5 balls, and just let's first try to do the 5-beat pattern. So pick up the balls. You're going to have 3 in one hand and 2 in the other. And you're going to start with the hand that has 2 balls. And first, now as we learn this 5-beat pattern, before we cut it down to 4 beats, let's just go slow, because we don't need to learn this at the correct tempo yet. We can just understand the technique first. So we're just going to do the first hand with 2 balls. It's going to go straight up and down, straight up and down. And try that. Yes. And then you do a crossing throw, and then straight up and down and straight up and down. And already now we can start to make decisions and say, okay, we had this idea of a line. And so we have these balls here in these positions, right? These lines going up and down. So we can also start to talk technically and say, when I first do the 2 throws from the hand that has 2 balls, you know, I can do the technique of the fountain, or how do you want to say, outside throws or inside throws or columns, right? So conceptually now, we can say we're going to use columns, just to keep it clear, this idea of the line conceptually in space. So again, we're going to go straight up and down, and then the 3rd ball, and then straight up and down, and straight up and down. And try it again, and you can start to understand this idea of columns. You can just go ahead and juggle. Up, down, crossing, up, down, up, down. It means in the direction of the line from 2 balls in that hand, you're going to go inside throw, crossing, and then an outside throw to finish off, right? To keep those lines in space. And then when you can, just do it at rhythm. Do them all in rhythm. So we do 5 throws in rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you understand the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you understand the mechanics, the physical reality of what you're trying to do, you can start to do it at the right tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Easy enough, yeah? Super easy. Because again, technically, the only juggling you're doing in terms of technical juggling and skill is you're doing one exchange of 2 balls in one hand. And then you're just throwing another ball for nothing. Actually, it's not even connected rhythmically. It's just because we want it to be, in concept. So, let's take that 5-beat pattern. And again, we're going to start with the hand that has 2 balls, but we're going to skip the first ball. It means that actually, instead of throwing 2 balls with the first hand, you're just going to throw 1 ball with the first hand, yeah? And then you're going to do the crossing throw, and then 2 balls again. And it's going to start immediately as soon as that second ball is in the air. And then we have a 4-beat pattern. So go ahead and try the 4-beat pattern when you want. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it doesn't stop. And just to be aware, you're doing really good. And just to be aware that, of course, even on the 4-beat pattern, the entire rhythm isn't natural. It's still forced, because I'm still only doing 1 throw at the first hand. That crossing ball still is not connected to the first ball physically. It's only because I want to throw it in time, that as soon as it comes down, I throw that one. And the same thing for the 3rd and 4th balls. After I throw that crossing one, there's really nothing forcing me to throw that 3rd ball. Right? So I just have to pay attention to when it starts to come down and then try to keep the same timing. I try to hold the rhythm and have a really steady rhythm. So then I can say to myself, okay, that's my trick. Do I like it? Yeah, I really like it. Now I have a pattern, I have an order, I have a rhythm, and it repeats, it loops, and I'm really happy because I had solved the problem that I had previously, right? I had a trick at one level, and I said, okay, am I happy here? I said, yeah, I'm happy, but it's only 5 throws, it doesn't go anywhere. And then I cut the rhythm to 4 beats, which is what we were working on now. And then I say, oh, I just solved the problem I had. And now I have a pattern that loops, and I'm really happy. So, where do I go from there? It's the same thing as before. If something works, don't stop doing it. Only stop doing it if it doesn't work, yeah? If it doesn't take you somewhere else, then stop doing it. But why not keep the same concept? We went from one level, at one level, we had 5 beats. In the next level, we had 4 beats, that's where we are now. So, let's just try to add 3 beats on top of that. Let's cut 1 more beat and see what happens, okay? So, again, here we are. We're going to start with the side that has 2 balls. And what we were doing just now was, we start here and we skip that one, and we were starting here, because we're doing 4 beats. But now, we want to cut it to 3 beats. So it means I start with the side with 2 balls, but I don't do the first one, and I don't do the second one. I cut those, I'm cutting those away, and I'm going to start here, actually. So conceptually, I'm starting with the side with 2 balls. In reality, in physical practice, I'm going to start throwing with the hand that has 3 balls. And then it's just going to go crossing, straight up, straight up. And again, I should start from this side, but I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to skip this one, and I'm actually starting here. Then in that way, we can have a 3-beat pattern and see if that works. So let's see how that goes in reality, if it works or not. I start here, I throw nothing, I throw nothing, that works, easy. Then I start here and I go, okay, crossing straight up, that works. And even then, when I stopped, I broke my rule about the rhythm. So if I keep the rule about the rhythm, I try it from the other side, I start here, nothing, nothing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it totally works. So now I have this 3-beat pattern. So go ahead and try to learn that. You can just juggle as I talk. It means the first ball is going to actually be thrown from the hand with 3. It's going to be a crossing throw, and then 2 throws straight up and down. Again, I'm starting with the hand with 2, but I'm skipping them. So the hand with 3 is going to throw crossing, straight up, crossing, straight up, straight up. That's the physical action, and then we have the rhythm on top of that. So then it doesn't stop. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then that works. And then I can say, okay, cool. So, yeah, good. So I say, oh, okay, so now I have a 3-beat pattern, so that worked. So, am I done? Well, no, because the game was, of course, like everything, if this works, then I should try to add a 2-beat pattern on top, right? So I should go from 5 to 4 to 3. Let's see what 2 beats looks like. So then conceptually, it goes like this. I start with a hand that has 2 balls, but I'm only going to do 2 beats. It means I skip the first ball, I skip the second ball, I skip the third ball, and then I start with this ball. But then we have a conceptual problem, because all the way back down the ladder, we had an idea that I was going to juggle these with my hands. And because I have 2 hands, it means I have 5 balls, and I divide the work by 2 equally, right? So let's say equally. It means that for now, I'm going to choose to define this as meaning that a 2-beat pattern is not possible. Because if I skip this third ball, then it doesn't change sides. Then I have a problem. Because then, if this never changes sides, then I'm doing the work unequally. I'm dividing the work unequally between the 2 hands. And this just reminds me that in my process of creating a trick, I'm constantly evaluating what came before and where I'm trying to go after. So now I'm working on a 2-beat rhythm sequence, and then I say to myself, well, is that possible? I try to evaluate it in concept, and then I have to pay attention to everything that's come before. I can't just all of a sudden say, yeah, I'm just going to skip that third ball, and then I'm going to go to this ball in the same way that I could skip the other 2, because I start to realize that I was dividing the work equally. So in one way, it's a lot to keep in your mind. When I make a step forward, I have to evaluate it with all the steps that came before it. And that can be a lot to handle. But again, if you just have a simple list, if you just had kept writing your list, you can always go back and say, okay, I want to do a 2-beat pattern, that ball doesn't cross, that ball's going to stay there, is that okay? And you start to look, yeah, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Oh, actually, dividing the work equally. That kind of breaks that rule. And for now, we don't want to break any of the rules, right? If you're building these layers, and you break one of those rules, your building is going to fall down, right? So let's just say that for now, we're making these layers, and where we're at for now is we have a 3-beat rhythmic pattern. And again, I can say to myself, with this 3-beat pattern, am I happy? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm happy. But I feel there could be more. I feel there is some sort of potential there. I'm making this building. I'm building up a trick. So maybe I want to build a little bit more, a little bit deeper, a little bit more detailed. Maybe something else will happen now. So in the same way that I was adding concepts below, for example, I took this idea of shape as an inspiration. And that idea of shape, in the same way of the idea of 5 balls, that was all a bit random. It was just because I said, well, how many balls do I want to have? Well, I don't want to have 1. So how many? Well, I want to have 5. There's no reason. But yeah, I had 5, and now here we are. And then I said, well, what about these 5 balls? I'm going to take the idea of a shape. What's the most simple shape? Oh, a line. And that's why I use shape. It's an arbitrary decision, but I've stuck with it, right? And now here we are, again, with our basic pattern. So again, now on top of this 3D pattern, I'm going to take a new concept and see what that concept means. And it means a little bit that in my new choice, I'm not really going to break one of my previous rules, but again, reinterpret it or redefine it. Because now, instead of saying that the balls go up and down, I can say that when I divide the work equally, and we start here again on the side that has 2 balls, for this ball to go up and down, it means it's starting and ending in the same hand. So when I throw the ball, it starts in my left hand, and when I catch the ball, it's caught in the left hand. It means the beginning and the ending point are the same. And that's way, I mean, you could say it's the same thing, right? I say throw the ball up and down. Okay. I say throw the ball so it ends and begins in the same place. Okay. It can be the same thing, right? You can allow me that. It's the same technique. It's the same thing. So if I kind of go back and reinterpret one of my earlier rules about the ball going, up and down, we'll talk about that. And I say, instead of the ball going up and down, it's just going to start and end in the same place. Then it means, for example, instead of the ball doing this, then the ball could do, for example, this. It could be thrown around the arm. And when we make this new level here, I'm going to say around the arm. It means that suddenly, in our conceptual line here, I have, by making this one new choice, I have 4 choices total to do. And I want to explain that. It means that at any step of the way in the pattern, the ball can do one of 4 things. So we made one new choice, and it's going to result in 4 different things. So the first choice is the ball can do the new thing. It means, so we have the new thing. It means that the ball could go around the arm. And at least for now, conceptually, from the beginning, any of these balls then can go around the arm. You can do the new thing. Instead of saying the ball goes straight up and down, the ball can go around the arm. Okay, cool. Then it means you could do, number 2, the reverse of the new thing. So it means that when I say the ball goes around the arm, so what we were talking about was the ball starting and stopping in the same place. So when I say the ball goes around the arm, it's an around the arm throw. I could do the reverse of that. I could say it's an around the arm catch. It's not breaking any of my rules. So I can do the new thing, I can do the reverse of the new thing. The third choice is I do the first thing and the second thing together. Right? So then it means the ball goes around the arm with a throw, the ball goes around the arm with a catch, or it goes around the arm with a throw and a catch. For now, it's a combination of 1 and 2. And the fourth choice is it can do nothing. It can do none of those options, right? It can go back, it can still do the first variation, which is just this. And I really think this idea is quite powerful, that when you make one new piece of information, one new choice, you actually are making 4 choices. That's really important. It's something we forget a lot. Because we say, okay, I'm going to do a new thing now, I'm just going to throw around the arm. And then that's all I can do. No, you have 4 choices. You can do it, you can do the reverse of it, you can do the combination of those 2, and you cannot do it. And that's really powerful when we look at this concept here, because look, I have 5 balls, and I have 4 choices on each ball. So it can be pretty crazy, right? It means this ball can go around the arm, this ball can go around the arm that way, this ball can do both, this ball doesn't have to do anything, this one can go around the arm in whichever way. And that can happen in any way possible. I mean, every single ball can do choice number 1, or every single ball can do a different choice, or a combination of choices. Again, we don't have that information. And it's in the combination of all these choices that we start to find some really nice patterns, I think. So again, we have a 3-beat pattern, and on top of this 3-beat pattern, we have all of these choices to start to try to put these balls in different patterns, and that's what I'd like to look at together now. At this point, you could say, great, we have the concept, we have the basic pattern, we have the 3-beat bass pattern, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we have the 4 choices, yeah? We have, on each of those throws, we could do one of these 4 things. You could say to yourself, oh, I understand that, so why should I do that? Oh, I understand it, yeah, I get the idea. So why should I go down and juggle all those variations, right? Conceptually and mentally, you understand what you've created and what you've made in terms of the theory of it. You go, oh, cool, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. There's 3 throws. Okay, I understand. On the first throw, you know, I can do number 3. Cool, yeah, that's good. But why go to all the trouble of actually juggling all of those patterns? It's because when we are making our plan conceptually, on paper or in our head or on the table, we're making a guide for us to follow. But it's different than the physical work. Once you start to do the physical work, you have a different understanding of the reality of it. It's the same thing as when I changed my grip. So the first thing I did is I tried to have this line, yeah? And then I can change the grip to make it like physically possible. Because I wanted to use my hands, and this is how my hands work more naturally over the years, at least. Then I started to have a new understanding of my concept. So even though you have a pretty deep concept in your head, and maybe you understand it fully, you can say, oh, I get it. I get where it's going. Oh, I could kind of imagine, do I want to do number 4 anymore? No, I don't think that's worth it. I've just done number 4 all the time now, right? That the ball just goes up and down. I understand that. I think that's a habit I find myself falling into sometimes, that I already try to understand what's happening because I think I know what the plan is. But knowing what the plan is and actually executing the plan is totally different. And again, it comes back to this reality. This grip change is the only thing we've had so far of a concrete example of that. But as we work through the variations of adding these 4 choices to the 3-beat bass pattern, we're going to start to see small changes in the technique. And those small changes in the technique are not obvious, they're not intuitive, but they are what I like the most, I think, because they are the surprises, and they're the things that you start to figure out that you never could have dreamed of on purpose. Right? Again, it's this idea that having these random elements kind of come together and they make something that you couldn't predict yourself. It is a true creation in that way. So as we work through these variations, one of the major values I see in doing them is you're going to start to find changes in the technique that your system couldn't predict if you only worked it out in your head, at least for me. Because mentally it's too hard to understand, it's too much information to understand. And there's a practical, real-world value of actually going through and physically trying all these ideas that you've laid out. And it's the same thing as we've done before. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of variations, and a lot of them might not be good, but it's much faster, I think, to work through all the variations and say, okay, here's a variation, no, it's bad, variation, bad, 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 bad. Ah, there's the good one. It's much better for me to work that way, to always have a forward momentum. I'm just following my map, my guide that I've set out. I don't have to think at that point, what am I doing? I just have to do the work. And I can evaluate it then afterwards. And I can say, do I like this pattern? No, no. Oh, I love that pattern. It's much easier for me to do that than to sit down and say, I have a 3-beat pattern, I have 4 choices, now, let's think of the good one. And then I try to imagine, you know, it's much better to have action and then evaluate from there. Because what I've done so far is, I have such a deep concept that I don't really have to think anymore, I just have to do it. So let's do it. It means that in our 3 beats, we're going to have 3 different throws, right? We have 3 throws. And you remember that, because we're skipping the first 2 throws, it means the first throw is crossing, the other 2 throws go straight up and down. So let's start at the beginning and say that on the first throw, we're going to do number 1, which is the new thing. And the new thing was, just to remind you, the around the arm throw. So let's try that. It means that the ball is going to be thrown around the arm, and remember it has to cross. It's going to be caught in the other hand. So I have 1, 2, 3. Right? You can just juggle along with me. 1, 2, 3. And again, we have this idea of rhythm, so we want to try to go in the correct timing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the ball is going around the arm and caught in the other hand. Now, one really nice thing about this technique that I've created with this trick is that, again, the rhythm is not natural. The rhythm is forced. It's by my own choice. It means as I learn these variations, I have the luxury to go slow until I understand what I'm doing. It means I can go 1, yes, that was right, and then, oh yeah, these 2 throws. Okay, what happens next? Yeah, this ball is going to go here, I can do that throw, and then I can do that. And then I can eventually do those 3 throws in a row. Okay, that was the first side. And I can do 3 throws in a row. Oh, that was the second side. Okay, now I understand the pattern. And then I can just do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so this might look like a lot of action in one way, but we both know that it's really nothing. It's just one throw, and there's nothing happening, and there's 2 more little throws. So that was the first choice on ball number 1. Let's try the first choice on ball number 2. And at the beginning, we're going to go through all the variations just to see what it looks like, and then we're going to move ahead to the better patterns to save time. But for now, since it's the first thing we've been trying, we're going to try to put this on all 3 throws. So let's try number 1 on ball number 2. It means the first ball is normal, so it's going to do the choice number 4, right? So it's just doing the crossing, and then we have around the arm and then up, straight up and down. So 1 and 3 is choice number 4, and number 1 is on ball 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, that 2, 3 is around the arm, it's an under the arm throw to the same hand, and then just straight up and down with that next ball. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Can I see? Is it okay? Go ahead and try it out. Yeah, good. Yeah, it looks great. Nice. So, let's try to do choice number 1 on ball number 3, and then balls 1 and 2 will be number 4. Back to the normal thing. So we have 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So ball number 3 is going to be around the arm. Means first I throw straight up and down with ball number 2, and 3 goes around the arm, back to the same hand. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And third ball around the arm. Good. And now let's try to do the combinations, still sticking with only number 1, but the combinations. So let's put throw 1, the new thing, on balls 1 and 2. Let's try that combination. Balls 1 and 2, and then ball 3 will still be number 4, which is nothing, the thing we've been doing before. So throw number 1 on balls 1 and 2. It means around the arm crossing, and then around the arm to the same hand and straight up and down. So crossing, same hand, straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. First ball's crossing to the other hand, second ball goes to the same hand. And then just keep it in rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Great, let's take another combination. Number 1 on throws 2 and 3. And ball number 1 will be number 4. So it means ball number 1 is normal, crossing, and we're going to have 2, 3, that both balls go around the arm. 2, 3, back to the same hand. So 1 crossing, and then 2, 3, around the arm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 1. Yeah, is it working? And again, you can go slow at first until you understand the pattern, and then you can try to do it at a consistent tempo. Great. And now let's do the last combination of the 2 ball combinations, which will be ball 1 and 3. We'll do the new thing. So ball 1 and 3 will be under the arm, and 2 will be straight up and down. Again, if you work that out slowly, we have 1 crossing under the arm, 2, and then 3 around the arm. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? And I think this is one of my favorite patterns with this, because you get some sort of back and forth. Feels a little bit like Mills mess, but I think this pattern that I'm juggling now, in one way, I don't say it looks quite crazy, but it looks quite dense, or it looks a little bit like very complicated. And we know it's really simple. It's only 3 throws of juggling, and there's only 1 exchange happening, but it looks quite complicated, right? The only thing that's happening is under the arm, crossing, straight up and down, under the arm in the same hand. So we just have, but if you get the rhythm right, it looks very complicated. And it's really very simple. And again, at this point, it's a good time to repeat, like I always do. That from the beginning of this process, I said I wanted to create a trick out of nothing, remember? I said, hey, I want to make a new trick today. And I started to make choices, and those choices could change. But I said, I'm going to have a ball, I'm going to have 5 balls, etc. It's a lot different than coming in and saying, okay, I want to make a new trick today. What should I do? Yeah, oh yeah, this is pretty crazy. This would be a good trick to do. For me, creation doesn't happen like that. It's a little bit more straightforward, and it's a long process, as we've had a long process together so far on this, but now it starts to pay off in a very clear way, I think. So let's do the last combination with the first throw, and that is to do all 3 balls as the new thing. So all 3 balls under the arm. Let's see what that looks like. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Again, first ball crossing, and then second ball, third ball, under the arm. Crossing, under the arm, under the arm. So now, we start to have a really small change in technique when we do this variation. It's not a big deal yet, but we start to notice a small thing, and that is, if we want to stick and be in rhythm to that decision we made earlier about rhythm, it means that as I throw, there's the first ball, the second ball, and the third ball. As I throw that third ball, I can already start to move the other hand to start to throw again. And we had this already on the variation, of course, where we had the new thing on the third ball. But now it's becoming even more apparent that the more you have to move that hand over to throw underneath, the longer it takes. So you want to try to stay in rhythm, and it's just to start to understand this a little bit. It's going to become important later on, a little bit more important. But for now, we can understand that it's going 1, 2, 3. So that third ball, again, I have that third ball, and I can already move my hand underneath it to throw under the other arm on time. So see how it looks on your own body, how that goes, if that makes sense. The first ball is crossing underneath, no problem. Second ball underneath, no problem. It's the third ball, because my arms are in this position on the third beat, right? And on beat number 1, they want to be on this position, because that's the first ball again. You understand? So it means that I have this throw like that. It's going to the same hand, and that hand with 3 balls is circling under to get there on beat number 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's going to become more pronounced later on as we do some of the other variations. But just to be aware that we want to be on time, we can start to move maybe earlier than we think we can, or that we had to before. Let's look at the second variation, which is going to be the reverse of the first thing, which is a catch under the arm instead of a throw under the arm. Let's do the reverse on number 1, see what that looks like. It means that that ball is crossing, so when we had the throw under the arm, it was pretty easy to keep the same shape. But now we want to do a catch under the arm, and it means the ball has to cross. So the catch under the arm, again, it's a reverse of that, so we just do a throw that's backwards. So we have a backwards little throw, and that's going to be the 1 ball, 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, and those are like normal. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And sometimes on some of these variations, as I start to explore the physicality of them, I'm playing with columns and fountains, and then reverse fountains, or however you want to call it, outside throws or inside throws, or column throws. And in this way, when I do this variation, sometimes I like to do them in a fountain, the last 2 balls. So I go reverse throw, and I just do 2 in a fountain, and then it keeps it in the same shape instead of trying to do the normal column to get that last ball out there, because I have a catch here, and after I do this throw, normally I should throw the other ball here, but this hand's kind of in the way. It's much easier for me to throw it on this side, if that makes sense. So go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the little technique change there that I like to do. Otherwise it's 1, 2, and then I have to push that ball out, and that hand is there, and it's not hitting, but it doesn't feel so nice. So see if you can try that and see if you're aware of that. If you try everything in fountain or columns. And let's try to do the reverse throw on ball number 2, and everything else is normal, or throw number 4. So then we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Again, 1 crossing, 2, 3. And then the 2, 3, it means you throw the ball across to catch it, and before you catch it, you have to throw straight up and down. So I throw it across, and as I throw it across, I throw the other one straight up and down, and then I go catch it, and then I come back and catch the first one. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There. Let's try the reverse catch on ball number 3 only, and 1 and 2 are number 4. So then if we go slow, it's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, here. We're going to end up here. And now we do have a new problem with our technique. Because look, we're ending here on number 3. And what we want to do is be normally here on number 1, right? Because we want 1 to be normal. 1 should be throw number 4. It means now we have a little technique change again that I like. This is a nice one. It means that instead of having to throw that ball across there, to cross it, I'm going to throw the ball straight up and down, but I uncross my hands. Right? So that makes sense. Normally if you want to have a ball crossing, you have 2 choices. Either you throw the ball across, and the ball crosses, or you throw the ball straight up and down, and the hand crosses. Either way, the result's the same. The ball's going to go to the other side. Those are the 2 choices. It means now I go 1, 2, 3 here, and I can already start from here. I don't have to go here before I start it, because I want to be on rhythm, on time. So from here I go 1, 2, 3, 1. Right? So try that throw. We have 1. The ball goes straight up and down, and the arms uncross. So again, I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Yeah, good. Great. And then let's try the reverse on 1 and 2. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. You can see these get quite complicated, but you can go slow and figure them out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But try it out. Again, go ahead and try it. You don't have to learn every variation, but you should try them and see how they feel. Maybe this is your favorite one. But if it is too hard, you can go ahead and juggle while I talk. It's okay. But if it's your favorite one, then you can go back and learn it later on. Let's try to do the reverse catch instead of the throw on 2 and 3 and see what that looks like. So number 1 is normal. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So you do the 1 and the 2, 3, just go both over the arm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And there, of course, you still have the third ball being caught under the arm. You can start from there already, the 1 from there. And finally, let's do the reverse on 1 and 3 and see what that looks like briefly. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And the nice thing about this one is, on the 1, you go here. 2, 3. You're ending here. Remember, the 1 has to be caught there. That hand can actually stay. That makes sense? So look, I'm going to do 1 is the reverse catch. 2, 3, and the 3 is caught there, but so is the number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Ah! 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Ah! And for fun, we try the reverse catch on all 3. We're just going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This side, and then the other side. This side, other side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So we just have one more variation to look at. We don't have to do all the combinations. I think you understand the process from working down through the first 2. Of course, you should try all the combinations, but we can skip some to save time. I think you understand what I'm talking about at this point. But let's see what this looks like, this 1 and 2, because again, this is a nice thing that we don't normally do. This idea of doing something and the reverse of it at the same time. So for now, let's see. Let's just put throw number 3 on ball number 2. Let's see what that variation looks like. Let's go. Ball number 1 is normal. Ball number 2, we can have it go, it's going to go around the arm throw, around the arm catch, but at the same time, so just go straight up and down. It means that ball number 2 is going to go straight up and down, and ball number 3 is straight up and down. You go straight up and down, catch, catch. Again, I'm going to throw on this side, throw on the other side. I throw here, and then I go catch, and then I go catch. I go 2, 3. And again, if you've never juggled 2 balls in one hand like this, it's a good exercise for this, and it's kind of funny if you've never tried that before on either hand. Or for that matter, all the circles around your arms. But you have 1 beat of this column with the arm in between. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ah! 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. It's pretty funny. And then let's try to put throw number 3 on ball 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And again, you have this straight up, and then you get a catch there. And we have this uncrossing throw again. Crossing, uncrossing thing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And if we put throw number 3 on balls 2 and 3, we have a nice effect in that on 2 and 3, you're going to have an exchange under the arm. Right? So I'm going to go 2, 3. So then I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. But so far, we've been doing symmetrical patterns in both senses of the word symmetrical. It means symmetrical in terms of we're sticking with one type of throw for each pattern. And as well, the pattern that we're doing now has two sides to it. Remember? There's the side that has 2 balls and the side that has 3 balls. So one time the pattern starts here, and the other time the pattern starts here. We can start to organize these 4 throws, these 4 types of throws, according to that as well. It means that, for example, in going one direction, we can have a set pattern of these throws, and then when we go the other way, we can have a different set of patterns of those throws. So we have an asymmetrical combination, and some of those are really nice. But before we get there, what we can also do is, we can keep a symmetrical pattern of the throws from either end, that's okay, but we can start to mix them. So far we've only been doing the same type of throw each direction on different numbers, but let's try to mix these up a little bit and see some of the other variations. So maybe we can do number 1 on ball number 1 and number 2 on ball number 2 and see what that looks like. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So number 1 is the crossing under the arm, 2 is over the arm catch, and 3 is straight up and down. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3. So now we also have this crossing early idea, because what's happening now is we have 1 goes under the arm, 2 over, and 3 here. But 2 is a catch here, and the 3 is straight up and down. And already, remember, we want to have this under the arm on 1. So we have to go 1, 2, 3, and on 3, I need to already start moving that arm for ball number 1. So just be aware of that. Try that. When you do ball number 3, you're already moving the other arm to start on 1 on time. Ah. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So already there, I have to move that arm early. Let's see, let's see if we do number 1 on 2 and number 2 on 3. See what that looks like. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we have, again, the 2 is the 1 and the 2 is the 3. This 2 is the 1 and the 3 is the 2. It just means we're going to go under the arm throw, under the arm catch. It's kind of a nice little, right? You have this little back and forth for 1 beat. So we have 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And you have to move that arm early. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Fried brain. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. And it's hard to get that arm back on time. Yeah, that was great. That was really good. You got it. That's cool. So of course we can mix these throws up in any way we want. But as well, and we can do them the same back and forth each side. But as well, we can start to make asymmetrical combinations so that in one way we're doing one pattern and in another way we do a different sort of pattern. And we'll look at that next. Okay, so looking at the asymmetrical combinations of these throws inside of the 3-beat pattern, it means let's take, in one direction, we're going to do throw number 1 on ball number 2, and in the other direction, we're going to do throw number 1 on ball number 1. A little bit complicated to remember, but still pretty simple. We can go slow. So it's going to look like this. 1 is normal, and then 2 under the arm, and 3 straight up. So 1, 2, 3. And then the other way, it's the first ball that's under the arm. It's the crossing ball. 1, 2, 3. The other ones are normal. So go ahead and work that out on either side. We have normal, under the arm straight up, and then under the arm normal, normal. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we're just putting that under the arm throw on different numbers of balls, depending on which direction we're starting from. First on ball 2, and then on ball 1. So ball 2, ball 1. 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, arm 3, arm 2, 3. Right? That's one way we can start to combine these asymmetrically. But there's other ways we can do it too that will make a whole picture together in terms of the type of throws that we're doing. For example, an asymmetrical variation of combining these throws means we can get a circular effect with all the balls, right? In the way that we have something with 3 balls called a false shower. And this way we can have a similar effect where if we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So all the balls appear to be going in the same direction. And what that's going to look like is, first, we're going to start with a technical variation to make this trick possible because we want to be on rhythm, on beat. So the hand that's on top is going to have 3 balls. And we're going to do that crossing, uncrossing throw thing, where that ball goes straight up and down. Right? And I uncross. So ball number 1 is going to do that little special throw. We have 1, and those other 2 balls go under the arm. 2, 3. Then we have the ball number 1 again as normal, and then we have 2, 3 as catches under the arm. And back to the beginning. So I go 1 as normal, but it's this crossing, uncrossing throw. And then I throw under the arm, so throw number 1 on 2 and 3. And then I do a normal throw, and then I catch over the arm, or throw number 2 on 2 and 3. 2, 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then the overall effect is that I'm juggling them all in a circle. So I have an asymmetrical variation that makes it look like the balls are all doing the same thing. One, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So in that way, these asymmetrical combinations are very valuable. You can combine them in really surprising ways. And just to be aware that so far, when we were doing the asymmetrical combinations, we were still doing symmetrical versions of the asymmetrical combinations in the way that we were saying that as we go, again, from one direction, we have a certain, plan, and when we go from the other direction, we have a certain plan. But those plans never change. But you can make your script or your idea as long as you want, right? It means the first repetition is this idea, and these are defined in certain ways. Like now we were throwing on one side the balls under the arm, and on the other side we were catching the balls under the arm, number 2 and 3. But of course, then the next time, after you do that one time through, these things here, your plan, your combination of those throws can be something different, etc., etc. And then this whole thing can loop, of course. It's just how detailed you want to make your plan or your script. And some of these variations, as we've seen, are really transformative. It really makes a new shape to the pattern, and it starts to make new techniques. But obviously this work is kind of endless. It can go on forever and ever. And we have so many variations already. Let's look at one final step, one final idea, one final layer, because I really want to convince you that this kind of process can just go on and on forever. We never have to stop. And just again, to be aware, now I'm doing a trick that looks like this. Right? I have this circular trick, and I quite like it. This is my 5-ball trick. I think it's kind of nice. I like how it looks, I like doing it, I can do it immediately almost. It's very low technique, but it's a new form, it's a new figure with 5 balls. So I could be done. I could be really happy and say, man, I have a lifetime of work ahead of me with all these little variations. I could be done now with my planning. I could just I just have to work now. But this it never has to stop. And in fact, on top of this entire building that we've been doing for so long now together, we can do one final layer just to show you again how this can keep going forward and finding new technique and new tricks as long as we want to. So for this final layer, let's have this idea of multiplex. And so for multiplex, for multiplex, let's look at what that means in terms of our concept. For me, multiplex means more than one thing at the same time. And we can talk more about that later. But for now, let's say, it means more than one thing at the same time, more than one action at the same time. So what are the actions that we're doing? Again, we're starting with a side that has 3 balls. We're skipping the first 2. Ball number 1 is crossing, ball number 2 straight up and down, and ball number 3 straight up and down. So if I start with a side that has 2 balls, I'm going to put multiplex on top of that pattern. I can say I skip those first 2, and the first 2 balls I'm going to throw together, right, at the same time. Multiplex. So that means I have a throw that goes like this. The balls go up, don't forget the middle ball is crossing, the second ball is just coming straight back down, and the third ball straight up. And that way we actually start to have a 2-beat pattern. Remember, we tried to go from 3 beats to 2 beats. And I tried to start from the side that had 2, and I skip this one, I skip this one, and I skip this one, and I start here. And I said that breaks my concept of dividing the work equally. But now if I put multiplex on top of this, I can go to a 2-beat pattern. Because I'm not skipping that ball, I'm only doing it at the same time as the second ball. So if I skip these 2, I start here and I go like this. 1, and then 2. And I start here, I skip those, I go 1, 2, 1, 2. I have a 2-beat pattern now. And we can try to juggle that. Let's see what that looks like. So again, I start with the hand that has 3. I can do a technique where one ball crosses and one ball goes up, and they go to the same height. So I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Again, the rhythm is only because I want to. After those first 2 throws, 1, 2. Then I have a break if I need to figure it out. But if I want to keep going, I can just keep it in time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And now, I have a basic pattern that's 2 beats with multiplex, and I still have all 4 of my choices available to me for the types of throws. And obviously, we don't need to spend hardly any time looking at those. But let's do a couple of them just to see how it applies very practically. And also I think they're really fun. I like them maybe the most of all. And out of those combinations, you have symmetrical and asymmetrical variations. So it's completely crazy. It's a whole nother family of tricks that goes on forever. But let's just take the most simple thing. Let's say that we have our 3 throws. We still have the same 3 throws. We're just doing them in multiplex. So we have the same 3 throws. It's just that these first 2 throws are together. So let's keep things simple. Let's say we do the first throw on ball number 3. It means the first throw, if you remember, we were talking about was going to be an under the arm throw. So let's add that into the multiplex base pattern. That's 2 beats long. We have 1, 2. So that ball number 2 is going to be around the arm. So I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? First 2, and then the third one just goes around. 2 throws, and then the ball goes around. And don't forget those 2 throws split. One ball goes to each hand. Let's see already now an asymmetrical combination. Let's try to do throw 2 on ball number 3, but in one direction only. Let's see what that looks like. So one direction, we're doing the normal 2-beat pattern, and in the other direction, we're going to try to do the catch under the arm on ball number 3. So in the first way, I just do like normal. The second way, I do like that. Right? Again, the second way, the second side, I throw 2 balls and I throw 1 and catch under the other arm. So I have just normal and then catch under the arm. Just to see already, asymmetrical combinations, they don't have to be that hard or tricky to remember. So we're just changing 1 throw out of the entire normal 2 beat on each side. It's the third ball, the second throw from one of the sides will be caught under the other arm. And let's start to see that now. Let's try to go like this. Let's put the second ball. How's this going to go? The second ball is going to be a number 2. So the second ball, let's see. I can write the numbers here. It'll be a variation number 2. The third ball, let's say, is a variation number 3. And the first ball, we can just keep normal. So it'll be variation number 4. So let's try to do this pattern. We'll do it for now. Let's just say it's symmetrical. Okay? And we're just going to start to get a nice little technique change. Maybe this will be the last pattern we do. So from either side, we're going to try to juggle this. It means that, obviously the first ball is very easy. You don't have to care about it. Except that now, number 2, we want to catch under the arm. So sure, we could stick to the literal pathway of the balls and say that the ball on the inside, if I look at my body, divided in half here, I say the outside and then the inside from this side here, from my left side, coming in, the ball on the inside. That's going to be the ball that normally crosses to the other hand. And this ball here, the second ball, the one that's on the outside, is the one I want to catch under my other arm. But if we switch those around, it makes our lives a lot easier, right? So we could make a technique change in the same way we did before. We had a little technique change here, and we also had a technique change at some point when we threw ball number 3, and I already circled underneath it. So 3, right? I start to have these little technique changes that make my life better. Let's make one now to make our lives better. It means that instead of catching the inside ball as the crossing ball, I'm going to catch the outside ball as the crossing ball. It means I can catch that inside ball underneath the other arm. And then ball number 3 was going to be a combination of under the arm throw and under the arm catch, so straight up and down. So then it looks like this. We have those ones and then straight up and down. Right? If I do that again just from the beginning, we're doing 2 sets of throws. The first one's a multiplex, but that inside ball is going to cross all the way over. I catch underneath the arm. And instead of just catching there, I'll do a little exchange with that one ball. But now, of course, when we're looping the pattern, we're starting from here. So, we get this little crossing, uncrossing throw again. Right? This crossing, uncrossing thing. It means that, in this way, we don't have to cross those 2 balls anymore. So we can cross them back. And I only point this out, this level of detail, just because it is the process. It is going like this. In one moment you think to yourself, because this is really what happened when I first did this. I thought, okay, I'm going to be super clever now. I'm going to cross that, I'm going to change the sides of those balls, I'm going to catch it underneath, and I'm so cool now. I solved my problem. And then I realized, oh, I'm back in this situation again. And I have to keep on rhythm, I have to do this uncrossing the arm throw where the ball goes straight up and down. But actually in that case, here, I can keep that ball as the crossing ball, right? Because I'm there, I don't have to cross it, yeah? In that way, normally here, we have like this. So that ball is going to go to the same hand. And the same thing now then, is still going to go, yeah? So we have, after that third ball goes straight up and down, you go from there. So when we start from the beginning, once we switch those 2 balls around from where they normally go, on the first throw of the 2-beat pattern. It means, again, the inside ball normally would cross to the other hand, but now I'm going to take the outside ball as the crossing ball, and I catch underneath and do the exchange straight up and down on the ball number 3. So then I'm left in a crossed arm position. I'm going to start again from here. It means I get to do one of those straight up and down throws where I uncross my arms instead of crossing the balls. The order of the balls remain the same, but I just uncross my arms in the same position, and I'm going to catch under and throw straight up and down. And that way the full pattern, of course, is going to loop from this position. It means I throw up and down. The outside ball is still going to be the crossing ball to the other hand. The inside ball is still going to go to the same hand, which is a switch from the basic pattern, right? Because now when I loop, I'm from here, and I'm going to do this crossing, uncrossing arm. So all these techniques are going to come together into this pattern. So we have the straight up and down with the third throw. And already, when the arms are crossed, I'm going to start to throw those 2 balls together. So I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And of course, again, this is a symmetrical pattern in the way that it's the same on both sides when I start from either side with the hand that has 2 balls. With 5-ball lines, we saw how to make a trick where I started with nothing and I ended up with a bunch of patterns that kind of go on forever. And then that way, again, we built a foundation of rules that we just kept adding to layer by layer, and we tried to stick to them as we went ahead. And each new layer we added, we had to look back and see if it was consequent to the previous layer. Did it hold true to the previous layer, or did it break a rule that I had already established? Or did I have to start to reinterpret rules? Instead of saying that balls, for example, went up and down, that they came and started from the same place. And then what we mostly worked with after we had the whole concept was, we had these 4 variations. Of course, that was also part of my rules. It was part of the foundation, but it was one of the details we looked at maybe the most to get all the variations, that we still haven't done all the variations, but we looked at some of them. And we looked at the process of how we could do those variations. And then finally we introduced another idea of multiplex. But again, that idea can keep going on and on and on with new ideas, new concepts, and new layers. And those layers can never stop. If you just want to keep adding them to this trick, and at any point you can say, am I happy? And if you're happy, you can be done. But if you feel there's something more you want to do, you can just keep adding and adding and adding. As well, like I said, at any point in the way, you can make different choices. My first choice I made today was I said I want to use a ball, because I wanted to use a really simple shape. And then I started to say 5 balls, etc. from there. But of course you could say, well, I just want to go back on my foundation, and I just want to change one of the details that's farther down on my foundation. So for example, you could keep your entire structure the same, the entire trick, the entire technique, the entire concept the same. And you can say, well, instead of choosing a ball, I'm going to choose a club. And again, then you can just plug that new choice into the system and say, we're going to do everything we did today, previously, like all the variations, including multiplex and whatever else. But instead of using 5 balls, we use 5 clubs. And of course, the habit or the intuition could say, oh yeah, but maybe I already know what's going to happen, or oh, that wouldn't be so interesting. But I promise you, if you use a new prop, you're going to start to find these new little variations of technique, these little subtle changes in the technique. And some of them are going to be great, and some of them are not going to work, and some of them are going to make you redefine the rules that you've established previously. But certainly, you're always going to be moving forward, finding new patterns and new techniques and new surprises that's going to inform the next layer of choices you put on top of your foundation. So instead of balls, I encourage you, you can totally try this work with 5 clubs. It's super fun. I haven't done hardly any of the variations. I just looked at the basic pattern a few times with a couple of the variations. I haven't had time in my life to get to it yet. But the 5 club lines, for example, would be great, or 5 ring lines, or whatever. And I just want to say, again, finally, that I really like this type of work, especially because when you have a pattern like this where the rhythm is not naturally there, whereas 2 balls in one hand, I naturally am going to throw the next ball, right? I have this established rhythm where the ball's coming down, it's forcing that ball to come out of my hand naturally. That's just how it happens, that's just how juggling works. But now I have a pattern where the rhythm is really broken down. The rhythm is really from inside of me. It's an internal rhythm. I'm forcing that ball to be on time for no other reason than my concept. I personally love patterns like this when I'm trying to make new juggling, because I can go slow and I can start to understand the variations. The technique learning curve is very small. It's a very short learning curve. Whereas if I'm going to take 5 balls and I'm going to try to do 5-ball Mills mess, or 5-ball back crosses, or 5-ball whatever, the technique involved, the timing involved for me to understand the trick physically takes a lot longer time span than what we did today. You guys had never done this 5-ball line work before today, and already you did the variations after a few tries. It's because first you can go slow and you can start to understand, okay, the first ball, where does it go? And you have time, you can literally start from here. Whereas when you're doing, for example, 5-ball Mills mess, it's really hard for you to say, okay, where does that 4th ball go? And you're starting from here. Because the balls need to, in one way, need to be in motion for that 4th ball to make sense. But for here, when I'm thinking about that 1st ball, or even the 3rd ball, or whatever, I can just do the 1st ball here. Where's the 2nd ball go? I have the time inside the pattern. The pattern has not stopped. It's only the rhythm that has changed. And then later on, I can add the rhythm back in. So it's really a nice way to make new tricks, that you have time to think and build into the creative process this idea about learning what you're doing. And then at the end, pretty quickly, I learned all these patterns almost immediately after I understood what I was trying to do. And that's a really nice way to create technique as well. I think we're always stuck with jugglers with this idea that, okay, I have a new idea for a pattern, I'm going to make a trick, a 5-ball line, whatever that is. And then I have to think, okay, is it working? Do I like it or not? And I always have that choice between saying, well, you know, the idea is bad, that's why it doesn't work, or I am bad, I just haven't learned it yet. So technically I can't do it. And then it's an investment of time into figuring out, once I do it, then I can finally evaluate, is it a good concept? But I have to invest all that time into it beforehand, before I know that. Or is it just a bad idea from the start? And where do I spend my time and how do I evaluate this process? Because it really does come down to this question at each level, am I happy? And if you know you're happy or not, that's the most important thing. Because if you're happy, then, well, then you have a nice trick you like and you are happy. And if you're not happy, then you know you can just keep going forward. So that's what I really like about this trick, is the process not only of understanding where I'm going, but also understanding how to learn the technique.